This is the Making Noise podcast.
Do you ever read any books or anything like that about other like professionals or I don't want like established people in their craft, whether that's movies or music or literature, and to learn about their process, like their creative process?
No, I've never. Yeah, I mean, I've read like some productivity books, which were okay. Sometimes, like, I find those books to be like super, like, it's all like anecdotes, like stories and stuff about like what they've experienced and then how they'd learn from it, which can be, it's interesting, you know, and it's like nice to read. But I always find like little nuggets in those books. But I've never written, or I've never read anything like that. Anything that was like, you know, are you going to bring up the Stephen King book?
Oh my God, that book's amazing, man.
I've been meaning to read that book for the longest time.
Oh yeah,
You're talking about on writing, right?
yeah. I'm like,
that's on my list, on my long list of books. But that's on my list for sure. I've heard it's. I bought it for a friend for his birthday.
Okay.
'Cause he's a composer and I knew he would like it, so I bought it before, but not for myself.
You were close enough to see it, but you couldn't touch it.
Yeah, I read the first page, I think, but
well, then you got it. You're good. You're good. Yeah, he has this, like, it was actually a game changer for me. This one thing that he talks about was after he writes the first draft. Well, the first thing he says he does is when he writes the first draft, he just writes. He doesn't put on like the editor hat. You know, he's not critiquing it as he's writing. He just writes.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So then whatever's in his head, he gets out. Then he says he takes the manuscript or that draft and puts it in a drawer for like 6 weeks and doesn't look at it. And what this does is when he finally comes back to it after a month and a half, he now has like the audience perspective because he's so disconnected from what the original ideas were. And so I started doing that. I try to do that now, but I did that maybe 1 or 2 times, like legitimately, where I walked away from a piece after writing it for like a month.
Whoa.
And I came back and I had a really objective view on it, you know? And I could see things that I didn't see the first time, where it was like, why this needs to go on for way longer. Like this is ineffective for this proportionate amount of time, you know?
Yeah.
And so I still try to do that, but it's a challenge, especially if you're working under some sort of like deadline with the commission or something, you know? Yeah. So you have to sort of plan it out if you're going to do that.
It can't all be Stephen King.
Exactly.
No, yeah. No, I mean, even if you just shorten that, like 6 weeks is a long time, but even a week or 2 weeks still can be incredibly insightful, probably, you know?
I think it could. I think it could.
I mean, you even find it like 2 days. If you do 2 days with, you're done, you know, you can't write any more of a piece. And you come back 2 days later, it's like, whoa, totally different. But 6 weeks, that's pretty cool, though.
I know, right?
That's awesome.
It's wild. That's one thing that I read that was a total game changer for me. And I mean, it's such applicable and practical stuff, you know?
Sure.
But yeah, it's one thing that I think is challenging with composing is when you do compose, like you were kind of talking about this earlier, is you're so in the details of it all, you know, every single day. And I think a lot of the stuff you were saying earlier about like, sometimes you'll lay down, sometimes you'll just think about what the sounds are. Sometimes you'll listen to different sounds that are within what you're trying to create. Mm-hmm. Like those are such important things to be doing, to step out of that, you know, get that more like global perspective.
Sure, that's so tough to do sometimes.
So
especially
hard.
When you're so invested and like passionate about something, it's really tough. And it's like that's like part of the craft that you work on. Is like how fast can you put on that global hat? You know what I mean? How quickly can you get in the mindset of the listener? And I always get bogged down on things that I sit there like listening to it live and I'm just like, no one's even hearing what I was like thinking about for days. You know what I mean? Like there would be like a problem or like a note or something or a sound, and I'd be like, that just went by in a second, and no one even heard it. Probably it was like so minuscule, and I was just like bogged down on it for a long time. So I think that you gotta somehow find a way to get that perspective as fast as you can, because it can save you a lot of time.
Yeah, man. Going back to that efficiency.
Yeah, it's totally saves time, because there's sometimes you just gotta let it be what it like. Stop thinking about it so much. I don't know. And then that comes on to like the question of like, when do you stop fixing things, and like what's the, I don't know. I think that I always run out of time, and I'm just like, all right, here we go. You know, I wish that I was more efficient with, like, I don't know. Sometimes you feel like you ran out of time, then you listen, and you're like, oh, it's fine. And then other times you have a bunch of time, and you're like, this is great. And then you listen to it, and you're like, man, I wish I spent more time on that, you know?
Right.
So I think you just got to getting stuff out, and then hearing it in a different situation, hearing it live, hearing it, you know, at the premiere or whatever. Because if you don't ever finish it, then you won't ever hear it at a premiere, hear it live, you know? So it's just, I've definitely, since I started composing, I'm now like more tolerant to like letting things go and just like, you know, but it's tough.
That's an interesting thing right there. I mean, like kind of being able to step back and then you put it out there into the world, and now it exists, and you're like, that's that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to let it. You just have to make sure that it gets out there and exists, because one, you're going to learn so much along the way, and also you made something, and that's cool, no matter if it's bad or good, you know, and that's also important. So yeah, just getting it out there. It's tough.